All right, we got some news here. Mike Shildt, he was on Ben and Woods moments ago, and he gave some updates on two of the big starting pitchers for the Padres who currently are on the shelf. And those are obviously Michael King and Darvish. And so let's start with Michael King. The update here, Mike Shildt, this is from Ben Higgins, obviously, from Ben and Woods. Mike Shildt tells us that Michael King has no structural damage in his shoulder. He's got a nerve that is being impacted and should be fine as soon as that calms down, although the time frame remains uncertain. So, starting with that update there, that's positive. No structural damage for sure. But then you hear, okay, a nerve that's being impacted, and it seems like they're waiting on that to calm down and then progress. Now, once it calms down, like, is he throwing right now? Once that calms down, is that when he starts to throw? And then how many does he need rehab starts? How long will it take for him to ramp up? And because I think about this, same thing with Darvish, obviously, is these guys probably aren't going to be back for this stretch that the Padres are on. Maybe they'll be back for the second half of the stretch where they're playing, I think, 26 games in 27 days, something crazy like that. Not crazy. I think every team goes through that, but it's there were a lot of days off early, and so now got to pay the price for that. But yeah, Pirates, this first half of it, Pirates, Giants, Brewers, Dodgers with no days off, then an off day on the 12th before the D backs, Dodgers, Royals, uh, Nationals to end that stretch. So that first half, taking us through June 11th there, that Dodger game, I don't see either of these guys returning. Now, that nerve thing could calm down tomorrow, and then maybe King does come back for like the Dodger series or something. But I just think of this as like, okay, long term doesn't seem like it's going to be an issue, so that's good news. But in the short term, the Padres are still going to be relying upon the rotation of Cease and Pavetta and Kolek and Vasquez and whoever, is it Kyle Hart, whoever. That's what they're going to be relying upon at the moment. And the Darvish update, Mike Shildt tells Ben Woods Darvish is progressing and playing catch more aggressively. It's just a matter of recovering and being able to go every 5 or 6 days. He's in good spirits, and they'll continue to monitor how he progresses. King obviously is more of like the on the like optimistic meter, um, more optimistic there about like his return for either the first half of this stretch or the second half of this stretch, if that makes sense, with the one off day in between. Because Darvish, it's just like, all right, he's got to get to a point where he can throw, a good amount of pitches, obviously, because you don't want to compromise the bullpen even more. A good amount of pitches, and then do it again 5, 6 days later. He's not at that point, and he was. That's why like he didn't come back because he wasn't at that point after that rehab start, and he was experiencing the residual effects from the injury in spring training. And so maybe this is going to be more than just hey, he's going to have one rehab start and then that's that this time around. Maybe they're going to want to, before he comes officially back into the rotation, maybe it's going to be more of like a hey, let's have a couple rehab starts or let's have a live BP. And then 5 days later, let's have a rehab start. And then once, let's see how you feel. Now we have confidence. He has confidence because it's really a Darvish thing. Like they're really seems like they are listening to him. Whatever he is saying, that's what they're going to be doing. And so he clearly knew his body well enough to be like, no, maybe other guys would be like, I just had a rehab start. I'm going to push through this. I'm right there. Let's go. But Darvish knows himself well enough that he's like, no, I'm being honest. I'm experiencing this stuff. Not ready. And so he ends up not traveling with the team, obviously, on that road trip, Toronto and Atlanta, and hasn't returned yet. So, with both of these guys, just to sum it up, don't know when they're going to return. But I would think that Michael King's going to return earlier than Darvish. But at this point in time, I'd be surprised if either return in the first half of this stretch as the Padres play, 3, 7, 10, 13 games these next 13 games, I just don't see King, definitely Darvish, but not King returning either. We'll see about that second half after that day off on the 12th. So positive and negative kind of at the same time, if that makes sense. So I wanted to give that update there. Any comments, obviously, you can leave that in the comments on YouTube. And then Bradley Rodriguez, he is going to be called up. That is kind of according to Mike Shildt. He didn't like confirm it on Ben and Woods, but he did give like a scouting report on Bradley Rodriguez. Nasty slider. And this guy doesn't seem like he's someone that would just be at the bottom of this bullpen and, mop up duty, game's not close. All right, now we put Bradley Rodriguez in. Uh, he seems like a guy that they could totally trust with the stuff that he has. I mean, and let's remember, he's not coming from AAA to the big leagues. He's coming from AA to the big leagues. So someone that comes from AA, clearly the organization believes, yeah, you're an impactful player. You're not just coming up to fill some innings and because we need an arm because one guy just threw 50 pitches in the bullpen and we just need a fresh arm. No, this is someone that they believe in. And so the guy that I see going down, would it be, I mean, it's I don't I don't think they'd pull the trigger on Wandy. I think it's between Morgan and Reynolds. Actually, what it could be is they send Kyle Hart down, right? Unless I Let me double check the transactions from the Padres here real quick. Yeah, so they option Omar Cruz. They called up Kyle Hart to make that start. They could just send Kyle Hart right back down. But then who would they call up, when that spot comes back around in the rotation? So if I'm picking from one of those two relievers, Morgan or Reynolds, I'm probably picking Reynolds to go down. I really like Morgan with the velocity, and even though he gave up that homer against the Marlins, he had 3 strikeouts after that. Like, this guy, he can get you he could get you out of some jams, I feel like. So I'd like to have Morgan stay up, and Reynolds, there's, potential there for sure, but it's really a numbers game, and at this point in time, I'm liking David Morgan a lot, and I don't think any of those other guys in this bullpen, Suarez, Adam Estrada, Morjon, Matsui, Peralta, I don't think those guys are really options to be going anywhere. There could one of these guys could go on the IL, could they put Wandy on the IL as a, uh, maybe he's hurt, maybe he's not, but hey, he's, you know, inflammation in his shoulder or some type of injury to give him some time here. I don't know. I feel like teams do that. And not like they make it up out of the air because I believe you have to submit stuff to the league. But if there's something little that maybe a reliever could come back, in a couple days, but he's struggling and you don't necessarily want to send down Sean Reynolds or David Morgan, maybe you do it that way. Total speculation there, but just wanted to put that out there as maybe a possibility. Bradley Rodriguez, by the way, he had a strikeout rate in the minors of 34.8%. And this news came down obviously this morning, by the way. And MLB trade rumors, excuse me, says he's not on the 40 man, so they'll need to formally select his contract. San Diego currently has 3 vacancies on their 40 man. So that doesn't mean they have to take someone off the 40 man. The only thing they'd have to do is make the active roster move. He's 21 years old, 18 games this season, 22 and a third innings, a 3.22 ERA, 34.8 strikeout rate, 5.6% walk rate. So he's not walking guys and then he's striking out guys. That's a very good combination, obviously. His fastball, upper 90s. He's gotten to 101 on that pitch. So, this guy, if you're going this weekend, which I am to a couple of these games, I'm excited to potentially get to see Bradley Rodriguez here in the big league. So those are the updates that I have for you. And yeah, Padres Pirates coming up Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Sunday game, remember, that's at 2:10, not 1:10. Tomorrow, it's not at 5:40, it's at 6:40. And today's the regular 6:40 start with Nick Pivetta on the mound.